The valedictory session this evening is by a visionary and business leader par excellence. No introduction can really do him justice, but I shall try. Founder of Infosys, an innovative software services global company, he conceptualized, articulated, and implemented the global delivery model, which has become the backbone of the Indian software industry. A highly admired and recognized entrepreneur, he has received the Légion d'honneur from France, CBE from Britain, and Padma Vibhushan from India. Ranked among the top business pioneers in technology by Financial Times, he is the first Indian winner of the Ernst & Young World Entrepreneur of the Year Award. He has served as a member of the boards on the boards of various well-known universities in the US, like Cornell University, the Wharton School, the Graduate School of Business at Stanford University, and the Rhodes Trust at Oxford. He was also the chairman at the Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad. While I can go on with his list of achievements, I think it's best we make use of better use of the time here. I'm delighted to welcome Mr. R Narayana Murthy, and today he will speak about new games, new rules. Joining him on stage is Nandita Lakshmanan, founder and chairperson at The Practice.
Thank you, Anubhuti. So I think no introduction it does justice to Mr. Murthy. The one thing that I would like to kind of share with all of you is that in the very early years of my career, I realized how important it was for a CEO, and that was what Mr. Murthy was, the founder and CEO, back in 2000 when we started working with him, was also the chief reputation officer, and he held reputation so close to his heart. The way we worked together is our timeless lessons that I hope that we can leave you with this evening. So 2003, 2004, Infosys was on a very special path, attaining $1 billion. So we never used the term unicorns then. The difference then was that Infosys stood very tall at $1.06 billion with close to a staggering 25% profitability that stood at $285 million. I was privileged to be close to this milestone, and I've never had the thrill of seeing quotes of the President of India, the Prime Minister of India, the Chief Minister of Karnataka, and the Minister of Disinvestment all in one press release, congratulating and joining in on the celebrations. The goodwill was enormous, almost as ecstatic as we see when we win cricket these days. So more recently, it was absolutely wonderful to see all the founders together at the 40th anniversary of this amazing company that you founded and helped, Mr. Murthy. The camaraderie, the shared values, and to date, each one of you continuing to contribute to the economy and society with as much passion, focus, and impact as during your days at Infosys. That is remarkable, for this is the consistency and sustained effort one wishes for in public relations. New game, new rules. Mr. Murthy, this was the theme of the Infosys annual report back in 2004. In fact, it was apt to bring that up as we are in an environment of great change. And of course, the rules and priorities of business are also changing. In this context, Mr. Murthy, public relations practitioners are often known as the conscience keepers of businesses, institutions, and even leaders we represent. Therefore, as custodians of reputation and trust, I have framed our conversation this evening around some of your beliefs you lived by and acted upon to put into perspective some very important aspects of what makes for enduring and enduring businesses in today's times. So, Mr. Murthy, you famously said it is better to underpromise and overdeliver. The new rules of the game, as we see around us, seem to be around over-promising and in some cases, breaking the law of the land. What has changed? And what should we be doing as we work with business leaders in order to ensure that we hold very high standards of governance?
Well, Nandita, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me to be part of this seminar. I must acknowledge the extraordinary value that practice you and your team deliver to Infosys at an important time, history of Infosys. You were a startup at that time, and Infosys founders, having been in the same position 19 years before, said, we have to provide an opportunity to a set of people who have competence and values. So the rest is history on your side and our side. Now, you asked me a question as to what is it that has changed in the game in the last 2 or 3 years. Well, entrepreneurship is all about creating lots of jobs and at the same time creating wealth, part of which goes to the founders, and the majority of it, by and large, goes to the investors. So today's entrepreneurs are under tremendous pressure to demonstrate to their investors that they would get very good returns. In the process, what has happened is that they have not done a very good job of estimating the market opportunity. I don't know, Nandita, if you remember, I had developed an acronym called PSPD. The first P stood for predictability of revenues. And that depended on how robust your forecasting system was, how much of ground level data was incorporated into that prediction, and month after month after month, we measured the variance between our forecasts and the actual sales. We also focused on some initiatives like repeat business from customers so that the variance between the prediction and the reality was minimal. Now, unfortunately, today, one area where India has been somewhat weak is that we do not have a robust forecasting of sales. That, in other words, there are no companies which are world class which can forecast the revenue of these companies. With the result, on the one hand, there are people who have made easy money in some parts of the world, and they got to this spray and pray model of investing. And when the entrepreneurs saw this happening to the neighbor, they said, why don't I also take a part of it, because I know the other guy is not going to reach that, But these people are spraying money. I mean, they're just spraying and praying. So maybe I too should partake a little bit of that. I mean, they are youngsters. They want they want the revenues to be achieved. They're all good people. There is nothing wrong with them. But this temptation to show higher market opportunity has always been there. Nandita, I don't know if you remember, you were probably very young. In 1995, there was a belief that India had 200 million middle class people. A lot of American companies and some European companies came, assuming that the size of the market was 200 million, and therefore they tried to offer. But they all failed and they went back because the middle class, the urban middle class, was nowhere near 200. And whatever little it was, in that, it was only the upper middle class which had the required disposable income. So that is the issue today. Therefore, I would not blame these youngsters. It is just that we need robust forecasting, sales forecasting companies. Let me stop here.
The other thing that we always experience with you, and you always said that, is good news must take the stairs and bad news must take the elevator. I think a lot of us in public relations do wish that our clients would actually follow that. I think this was also coming from the background of being very transparent in communication. And also this whole aspect of when in doubt, disclose. And I recall us being the first to break the news, break the bad news to the media. So, Mr. Murthy, would you be able to recall any incidents where you decided to share the bad news, and how did it impact you?
Well, let me talk about two incidents or two events before you came on board to help Infosys. In 1995 May, a Fortune 10 company came to renegotiate the prices, the rates, and it was in this hotel that sequestered us in different rooms. They would go from room to room, negotiate hard, and reduce. All our esteemed competitors signed on the dotted line. And all my younger colleagues, I don't blame them, they were scared that our future may get affected severely if we who had just been listed in 2 years before that, or less than 2 years before that, also we did not agree to the terms, therefore we would lose that revenue. There were a lot of other people who were waiting to get that. But I stood firm and I said, no, if I were to accept this reduction of rate, I will cheat these people later on because I will not be able to provide good quality software to these people. I will not be able to invest in our people, in our technologies, in our physical infrastructure, in our R&D, education, etc. So I was very respectful, but I declined it. At that point in time, the company was contributing 25% of the revenue. Imagine a company which had just gone public less than 2 years before, and it loses 25%. There was a big debate next day on whether we should disclose or not, because those days there were no laws that required us to disclose. Regulations were not there. But I felt that good relations with investors, enhancing the trust of those investors, would require us to level with them. because I've always believed that investors understand that every company will have ups and downs. But what the investors want us to do is to level with them, to be honest with them, to tell them the real stuff. So therefore, we went to Bombay within 48 hours of that. And nobody knew about these discussions with the Fortune 10 thing. And we ourselves disclosed this is what has happened. This is our plan. In those 2 days, we worked almost 18, 20 hours. We prepared a plan. We talked to so many of our customers, etc., etc. And we said we have lost this business. However, this is our plan to make up. Now, we can't guarantee you that we will be able to make up. However, we refused this because of this reason. And these are the steps we are taking to make good. Our stock price didn't go down. So I think it is extremely important that you keep good relations with investors. The second issue is, we were waiting for, it was in 1996, the very next year. We were waiting for approval from the Reserve Bank of India. Those days you needed all those things to start an office in the US. But they took about a year and 3 months. And we decided to invest whatever money was there in the secondary market, and we lost some of that. Again, there was no regulation that we needed to disclose it. Zero. But we, on our own, said, investors are part of our family. When there is a bad news, we want our family members to know, because in some way they're likely to lose. So, in a matter of 48 hours, again we arranged a meeting of analysts in Mumbai, and we disclosed to them that we were wrong, we did this we should not have done, and we will not do it again. We did it we talked to our shareholders even at the AGM. Again, our stock price didn't go down. So the reality, because you wanted me to talk about a couple of incidents, so I'm talking about them. The most important thing that you, who are the messengers from the company to the public, have to take on the responsibility of advising these young entrepreneurs. Like Nandita, Nandita was not there at that time, Nandita would do later on, to gently persuade the CEOs and the other founders and co-founders that if you want to build a trust with investors, you have to level with them. Where they should say, these guys may not be smart, or these girls may not be smart, but at least they are trustable. That, I think, is your responsibility, because you are the window for the outside people into the company. You have access to the senior management of the company. You can persuade them to do what you think is right. So that's what I would say.
And I think, Mr. Murthy, I think what we realized was you were not just transparent with investors, but I think employees. During every quarter results, there was a big chunk where Hema would come and talk about all the hiring and the human resource mandates that Infosys was actually adopting. And community, I think every stakeholder, you were transparent with. And, as we kind of move on into today's age, post the pandemic, we're hearing about various trends that are gaining ground. You're hearing about moonlighting, you're hearing about quiet quitting, the great resignation. And while all of this is happening, India has lofty ambitions to become a world leader. So do you think that today there is a big gap in what corporates and institutions offer and what our youth want? And how do we work our way around these trends without losing out this immense opportunity we have to put India on the world stage?
Say the last two sentences.
So how do we, with all of these trends that we're seeing in human resource, where the whole future of workforce is changing, and yet we need this workforce to contribute to make India a global powerhouse. So is there a little conflict, and are there gaps between institutions and the youth today?
You know, I'm an old-fashioned person. I'm 77, so I'm old. So I am not a great fan of this work from home. I don't believe in that. The reality is that, first of all, most of the youngsters hardly have enough space to live. Maybe they have a bedroom and a drawing room and a kitchen, etc. If they have to entertain, if they have to have their parents who may visit them, or if they may have a child, and to focus on their work, it's not easy. Whatever anybody may say, the reality is it's not easy. Second, if you want to build the culture of an organization, you need to interact in 3 dimensions. You need to walk the corridors. You need to hold discussions, not in 2 dimensions, but in 3 dimensions. And culture is the most important attribute of an organization. As Peter Drucker himself said, culture eats strategy for lunch or for breakfast, whatever it is. So therefore, I am somewhat surprised, but what I'm very impressed is why I admire what's happening today is all these companies are reporting good revenue growth. Some are reporting better profitability, at least in my sector. Now, I did discuss with an American former CEO as to why is it that it's happening, because everybody is working from home and we don't know what their productivity, nobody has measured. What he said was, look, the reality of the US, which is our largest market, or even to some extent Europe, is that they are under tremendous pressure to cut costs. And therefore, they are seeking better value for money from Indian companies. That's why the demand for the Indian companies is going up. But the true test for Indian companies will come when that plateaus. So my personal view is that you are all the PR people. You can influence the public thought so much better than individuals like me. Therefore, you people will have to, in some way, communicate to the senior management of companies that the best way to build an organization is not through work from home, but by attending the office for 8 honest hours a day, and then come home happily and spend time happily with the family. Office is for work, home is for spending time with family. that is that message, if you people can kindly pass on to the senior management.
So I think Richa gave us the first communication brief this morning, and we have Mr. Murthy giving us all the second communication brief of the day. So I think we'll move on similar lines. Mr. Murthy, you also said engineering or technology is all about using the power of science to make life better for people,
Yeah.
to reduce costs, to improve comfort, and to improve productivity.
Yeah.
So do we need to have more discussions about technology for good and bring ethics to the forefront of discussion and debate?
Well, I think that's, again, a very important question. For example, artificial intelligence has been rising very rapidly in the last 4 or 5 years. AI is being used in every area. Now, there are a few people who are somewhat concerned about this. For example, AI is used to decide whether a person who is held on a charge is bailable or not. Now, if we use AI as it is today, then almost all this decision is based on the past data, unfortunately. And the past data says that this guy has done 5 mistakes in his life, so therefore I am not going to give him the bail. That is not fair. He or she may have been wrong in 5 past cases, but in the 6th one, he or she may be completely innocent. How can you do that? The second issue is in the medical field. In 1984, we worked with a set of professors from Stanford and UCLA to develop an expert system. What that expert system did was it provided medical diagnosis for certain kinds of chest diseases, heart diseases, etc. This was done under a special program between USAID and India, where we got 50% of the, we were just 3 years old. We were, a very small startup. This is done as a part of the, we got 50% of the money from USAID. But when we wanted to release that product, we consulted an American lawyer. Those days we didn't have much money, RBI was not releasing, so we consulted an Indian friend of ours who was a reasonably good lawyer in the US. He said, no way, because tomorrow, if this expert system were to misdiagnose and the doctor were to say, I went with this very heavily, etc., you will be sued. He said, forget about you guys. You are in India. You may not, they will know, the Americans will know you don't have any hard currency. They may not do anything. But those poor American professors at Stanford and UCLA, their houses will be auctioned. So that is another issue. That is, the expert system may may lead to wrong conclusions. But at this point of time, it is an ethical issue. That is, are we going to punish somebody just because in the last twice or thrice he or she was wrong, and this time we may feel he is innocent, but the algorithm is saying that no, don't give this fellow bail. We have to go by that. So there are always ethical issues. But my own personal feeling is, in the end, over a period of time, technology will always help mankind. There is no technology which cannot be used for bad purposes, but over a period of time, every technology will help mankind. I mean, all of you know, when printing press came into existence, you know what was the largest number of papers used for printed papers used for pornography? This I'm talking of some 1450 or 1500, I don't remember when printing press came. When internet came, it was a large percentage of it was being used for pornography. But over the years, it has come down. So I don't think we should throw technology to the dustbin just because a small percentage of people will use it for not so worthy purposes. I mean, so my own view is, while there are ethical issues at this point of time on AI in certain areas, the technology will become even stronger, and eventually it will be so useful to such a large percentage of people that minor violations will have to be forgiven, and it has to be used. That's what I would say.
Thank you for that. No, there are several PR firm leaders and also corporate communications leaders over here, and I do want to touch upon the subject of how while you were fierce competitors with companies like Wipro and TCS, at the time when you all recognized that this IT sector could actually create and lead brand India, you all came together. And I think co-opetition is the word that was used then. And you all came together and thought about the industry first, as much as you thought about your own companies. And I recall, the time where you also worked very, very hard with Nasscom to actually open doors to a lot of multinationals with the view that, if you could beat them in India, you could beat them anywhere in the world, And this age of protectionism, right, where we're talking about, Make in India and all of that. Of course, Make in India is not only about protectionism. There's so much of good coming out of it. What would your views be around that?
Well, thanks for bringing that topic up. I was the president of Nasscom from 90 to 92, and or 92, 94, I don't remember. I used to be the vice president, and then I became the president. Today it's called chairman. But during our period, chairmen were involved a lot more because it was a 2-year term. Today it's 1 year. And at that time in 91, I remember when the government, when Dr. Manmohan Singh announced that they will provide 100% equity for technology companies to come back and start in India, there was a lot of opposition. As you know, George Fernandez in 1977, he decreed that any multinational which wants to operate in India has to dilute its equity to 40%. My boss, Maiko, did here, Hindustan Lever did in Bombay. But there were two major companies which refused to do it. One was IBM and second was Coca-Cola. Now, I personally felt that IBM coming back to India, followed by Accenture, Digital Equipment Corporation, Citibank Software Development Group, etc., I personally felt that this was good for the country. I still remember I once went to met late Rahul Bajaj at a party, and Rahul was leading the Bombay Club at that time, if you remember. And I said, Rahul, kya ho raha hai? What is the problem? Why are you guys doing? He said, yeah, don't forget about all of this. Just focus on market. Market is the ultimate guru, management guru. From market, you will learn everything possible. You don't have to go to any management guru. Just focus on observing and learning from the market. Then everything will be all right. So my view was that when IBM, Accenture, Digital Equipment Corporation, Microsoft, many of them were coming to India, I said there is going to be a great learning. No, the competition in India was not for the Indian market because there was hardly any Indian software market. All these companies, IBM, the companies that came, they sold hardware and software, primarily a combination of systems. But they were big competitors for us for talent. Therefore, my friends told me, Murthy, your game is up because all these big guys, Microsoft, Citibank, Digital Equipment Corporation, IBM, all of them have come. Your employees will leave you and go away. So I called a meeting of the brain trust of Infosys. There was, Nandan, there was Chris, and a few others. I said, look, this is the reality. No matter what we say, this danger exists. What is it that we need to do? Should we oppose the multinationals? Should we make the government take back that legislation saying that 100%? We all agreed that it is wrong to do that. We want multinationals here. And therefore, I took the position at Nasscom that we will welcome multinationals because there is a lot that we can learn from these multinationals. However, we will compete with them because if we can't compete with them in our own backyard, where is the hope of competing with them in their backyard? That was my rationale. And then in Infosys, we understood what are the areas where employees feel attracted to multinational. We realized first is the hygiene factor of salary. Second was a challenging work environment. Third was a very clear articulation of growth path. That is, if you did well in what you are doing today, this is where you will be 3 years from now. And this is where you can hope to be, whatever, 15 years from now, 20 years from now. So we said, and finally, good physical and technological infrastructure. So that's why we went public in 1993. We raised about 13 crores and we built the first building in Electronic City campus, spending 19 crores. And we put in the best technology, better than or as good as any multinational in Bangalore or in India. Second, we had a very good HR person, Emma. She created a very good career growth path. This is where you are. These are the conditions for you to go to the next level. These are the conditions for you to be considered for going to the next level. And this is where you are likely to be 15 or 20 years from now if you made all the right moves. Third, we said we need challenging work. The challenging work, we said, is what our salespeople must bring to the company. So we held 3-day seminars multiple times for our salespeople, saying that look for these kinds of projects, these kinds of technologies, and then our employees will be happier to work in this company because they're learning fast and they are, they're going to be much better software engineers at Infosys compared to any other place. And the last one was the hygiene factor, salary. We knew that all these multinationals in our sector who are coming to India were cost centers. I'm sure you will all understand that, right? They were not profit centers. Unfortunately, or fortunately, whatever it is, we were profit centers. In other words, if we charge the same price as an Accenture or an IBM or whatever it is, Microsoft, same cost as same price as X, our expenses had to be at least, at that point in time, when I left, we made 31% net income after tax. So 30% less. I said, this is a physically impossible issue to solve. So we couldn't decide on it in 92 or 93. But then 93 October, Mr. Mohan Pai was one of the brightest chartered accountants that I worked with. He came on board. And he, Nandan and I, we had lots of discussions. And together, we came up with the employee stock option plans. Now, selling it was so difficult. People would say, will you guarantee me that I will get this much money? I said, nobody can guarantee you. That responsibility rests entirely with you people. If we award you at this price, if you want the share price to go to whatever it is, 3 times X, you have to demonstrate that kind of earnings per share. If you have to demonstrate that kind of earnings per share, you will have to increase the profitability. So it was difficult, but finally we managed. So Mohan and I, we met with a lot of employees and communicated all these things. So that's how we made sure that we worked with the industry chiefs in taking a decision not to go to the government and say, no, don't, go back on the legislation to allow 100% for foreign companies, for multinationals. But while within Infosys, we did a lot of that. That's why we have this model of cooperation. At one level, you compete at the ground level, but at a higher level, where the policies for the industry are concerned, then we did, we cooperated very well.
So Made in India, Made for the World actually started in 1981, despite the governments, and on the bedrock of trust, reputation, and goodwill. And I leave you with one of my favorite beliefs of Mr. Murthy, which is, the softest pillow is a clear conscience. Mr. Murthy, it was a pleasure having you here with us, and thank you for making time. Thank you, everyone.